I want to talk about a couple other guys. The first guy I want to bring up, we're talking about the shortstop position. We're talking about Tatis, is Ha-Seong Kim. Because throughout the full season, early on in the year, it was like Ha-Seong Kim is doing a decent job, but we're waiting for Tatis. We're waiting for Tatis. Well, now the Padres are at a spot where Ha-Seong Kim is the starter for the rest of the season. Ha-Seong Kim is going to be the starter for this entire 2022 season at shortstop, while also filling a little bit at third base for Manny as well. But the dude's been a stud. The dude has not only, I think, like exceeded expectations in terms of his year last year, because it's like, okay, let's improve, let's make some improvements, but he's like a 4.5 WAR player. He's a guy that's been hitting the ball pretty well, has not hit for much power this year. We know that power numbers down the league are going down, but he's been really solid. And defensively, I mean, we all see the highlights all the time. The reason we're talking about it today is because of the play on Sunday was such a sweet play, and it brings a lot of momentum. Manny talked about Kim, that he's just kind of like, he's like a spark plug type player for this team. And we have absolutely seen that this year. So Ha-Seong Kim deserves a lot of credit. We talk about him every once in a while, but it seems like he kind of gets forgotten about just because even in terms of like Jake Cronenworth and stuff like that, he's not as good as a hitter as some of these guys, but he's playing the position where defense is most important. It is the most important defensive position, and he plays it extremely well, pretty much as good as anyone, and he has taken tremendous strides in his second season. So he's a guy that could even get a lot better in his third season as well. When Ha-Seong Kim was signed, we talked about it, and we said, look, this is a guy, expect it to be a little bit slow at first. Don't expect him to have good offensive numbers. If you look at a lot of guys that have come from either the Japanese league or the KBO in the past, it takes them to about their third year. But for Ha-Seong Kim, we're already seeing significant strides taken in his second season. So I got to give a lot of praise to Ha-Seong Kim. But how do you feel about him, Isaac?
Yeah, right now he's got a 2.6 F4 with a 103 WRC plus. A little bit over and above average hitter, but that 2.6 WAR is mostly going to accumulate from his platinum glove type defense. I mean, is it platinum or diamond? It's platinum. Yeah, it's platinum. Platinum glove type defense. Right now he's on pace for a 3+ WAR. That's everything you can ask for a guy making $7 million and filling in for a guy that's putting up a 7+ WAR. That's everything you can ask for out of Ha-Seong Kim. Made a fantastic play the other day, and I mean, there was a little stretch where he had a fantastic 2 weeks, whatever it was earlier in the season, and then he cooled off for a really long time. Now he's heating back up, and unfortunately for him, we kind of need him. We kind of need that to occur for the rest of the season. We can't afford for him to have any sort of cool down, but as of right now, he's looking the part that's not going to happen. He's absolutely played out of his mind. At the plate, he doesn't feel like really a liability the way he did in late May and in June. He doesn't feel that way. It almost feels like you're at minimum going to get the ball and play, and you're going to get a competitive at bat. But right now he's doing everything that the Padres could ask for out of a backup shortstop, even just a utility player is what you could call him. But a 3 WAR in your second season coming from the KBO where, they're throwing mostly maybe 91, 92, and you're coming to the league that's starting to see 96, 97 plus consistently out of almost every pitcher. And you've shown growth in your at-bats, shown growth in your swing and everything like that. And of course, your defense was always going to be your strength. Your defense was always going to be your strength. So he's absolutely been everything we all could hope for. A fan favorite, a spark, and really what looks like one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball. And I mean, I'll check right now, but I'll try and compare his WAR to the rest of the shortstops after Matt talks.
Yeah, and even last year too, like when we were looking at Kim, when he filled in for Tatis early on in the year, when the first time like Tatis kind of had that shoulder injury, dude, he was ranked like third in defensive WAR in the entire league, and he had played like 2 weeks less than everyone, and it was maybe like 6 weeks into the season, where like it was like, dude, this guy has barely played, and he's already putting up ridiculous defensive WAR. He's extremely valuable, and everyone could see that. But if we just look at his jump in his numbers from these past 2 years, I don't think you guys remember how bad Ha-Seong Kim's offense was last year. He hit 202 with a 270 on base percentage and a 622 OPS. Right now he's hitting 252 with a 330 on base percentage and a 704 OPS. And keep in mind, his home run rate this year has already been down quite a bit. He has like over 100 more at bats, and he has less home runs. Now, I think we can kind of look at it and say, okay, like maybe we can attribute that a little bit to the ball being like more dead this year. Either way, if he's going to lose power to gain 50 points to his average and almost have his OPS jump 100 points, and he's getting on base that much more, maybe that's why. That's fine too. I mean, I'm perfectly okay with that. But the big thing why I think like looking at Ha-Seong Kim's numbers are so interesting is that he's also been really good over the past month. Like he has consistently been getting better and better as the season has gone along. He absolutely kills lefties, no matter what happens. And I want to talk a little bit about Tatis in the outfield and Kim at shortstop next year a little bit because I see some people bringing that up in a second here. But no matter what happens, he's a guy that has to be in the lineup against lefties because he is such an like high end fielder. And when he's going against lefties, his OPS has been ridiculous. His lefty righty splits are big time. So I don't know, man. I'm just pumped about it because I think that it's really interesting. But I see a lot of people talking about Tatis in the outfield and Kim at shortstop. So Isaac, what do you think about that happening next year? Because we've been a little bit more against it on this show, especially this season coming back. And then we talked about it a little bit this season, and we were like, hey, maybe we're coming around to a little bit. So what do you think about that potentially happen next year with Ha-Seong Kim's emergence this season?
So as of right now, Ha-Seong Kim is a top 10 shortstop, whether it be at I think he's at 9 or 10. If you just going based off F4, that's it. He's been fantastic. So like I said, he's fulfilling that spot. But in my opinion, I think it is weird to substitute a 7-WAR shortstop for a 3-WAR shortstop. That's just my opinion. Defensively, he's fantastic. But the thing about him defensively is that he doesn't just play shortstop. He plays like 3-4 different positions. 3 primarily right now. The reason I was, in favor of it is that Trent Grisham is terrible against lefties. I mean, I think he's kind of around the same against righties, but Ha-Seong Kim's significant strength at the plate has been against lefties. So what you wanted to do was you wanted to have Fernando out in center against lefties with Kim at shortstop, and against righties you wanted Fernando at short with Grisham in center field. Now, could that still be the case next year? Yeah, it could. I still would not be opposed to that because obviously Fernando has the athleticism to play multiple positions, and Kim has the defensive prowess to be able to play second, shortstop, or third. So whatever it is, I think, the Padres are going to find whatever it takes to do what's best defensively for the team. I think what's best defensively for the team, of course, is you want Ha-Seong Kim on the field somewhere. That would be at the expense of Tatis, who is the best shortstop, was the best shortstop in baseball last year, and the year before. Put up back-to-back seasons where, in terms of F4, he was the top shortstop. But that is primarily because of his hitting numbers. So defensively, when you really start looking at, I guess like the in-depth details of where you want these guys defensively, the argument has to go to Ha-Seong Kim. Does Fernando make these stupid, incredible plays? Yes, he does. He makes some plays that honestly no other shortstop. Maybe you can throw in O'Neal Cruz in there now just because that guy's also an athletic freak. But I have never seen any other shortstop make. Whereas Ha-Seong Kim, that guy makes some pretty damn cool plays too. Maybe not as cool, but he makes some pretty cool plays. So I think that, of course, there's an argument for both, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that most likely what we're going to see is we're going to see Kim in the lineup against lefties. The Padres should definitely have Kim in the lineup against lefties at any chance they get next year. If you look at his splits, so right now over the full course of the season, he has an 830 OPS and hitting just a couple ticks below 300 against lefties, whereas against righties he's hitting 231 and has a 643 OPS. So like almost 200 points difference between the two. Now, I see some people talking about he's been hitting righties a little bit better lately. I feel the same way. I feel like he has started to do that and pick up a little bit in regards to that. But he's still not posting numbers over the full course of the season that you don't really want him in your lineup against righties. However, as a depth infielder, I mean, that was what he was signed to be. He was signed to be a depth infielder for the team. And he's been a lot better than that. I mean, he's been a lot better than what they probably expected him to be. And that is something that is really, really cool to see because we've talked about it before. A lot of times in terms of Padres development and in terms of Padres getting guys, they usually are not as good as they were before the Padres acquired them. And Ha-Seong Kim is one of the guys that has not been. He hasn't been that. And people, I remember in the offseason were complaining that he's making $7 million a year. Completely justified to make $7 million a year. And the deal looks pretty good right now as well. So I think that he's going to start against lefties. I think you're going to see Tatis in the outfield against when the lefties are there. And I do not think you will see Trent Grisham in the outfield. So maybe that doesn't mean that Tatis is necessarily in center field, but I think you'll see Grisham on the bench. In terms of against righties, I still think that Kim is probably your depth infielder. But think about that. If he's your depth infielder, you're still probably going to see him as a defensive replacement late in games. You're still going to see him give Manny off days, give Cronenworth off days, give anyone an off day if they move to DH that day, give anyone an off day or give Cronenworth an off, or not really give him an off day, but slide to second if Cronenworth is at first base. You know what I mean? So there's just there's still so much playing time if he's only technically a platoon guy against lefties and then your depth infielder. So I think that's absolutely what it's going to look like. In terms of Tatis playing center field, I see Steve Robinson says it right here. Center field would be good for him. He has a lot of speed. I think so too. I mean, if he gets a lot of offseason to work on it, he definitely could. When he played it late in 2021, he looked so uncomfortable. Like he looked lost, bro. But keep in mind, he picked up the position in the middle of the season. So we shouldn't have been expecting him to come out and be, Tatis looks like a natural center fielder or right fielder or whatever he is. We shouldn't have seen that. But I definitely think that, you're probably going to see him a little bit in the outfield, but I don't think he's going to be a full-time outfielder. I think at the end of the day, Tatis is still going to be a shortstop, and Kim is still more than less kind of your depth infielder at the end of the day, which, dude, that's not to slight Ha-Seong Kim. It's just that the guys at those three positions, if you were saying that Tatis is a shortstop, that they're all elite. They're all all-star caliber players.
They're elite, exactly.
So that's what I'm kind of saying. And yeah, I don't think that Cronenworth is going to be moved. I don't think that Cronenworth is going to be playing first base. I think that he's definitely your second baseman. When you compare him to the other second baseman around the league, he's cheaper and he has been top five I think he's 1 or 2 in terms of WAR since he debuted in the MLB. So that is some really impressive stuff. So I definitely think that that's probably the best bet for how that is going to look. I don't know. Anything else you want to add on that?
I think one of the things that we had said was that Ha-Seong Kim, in terms of his emergence, in terms of his growth as a player, I compared him to Tommy Edman, where I thought, okay, if this is going to be a successful season for Ha-Seong Kim, it needs to be a comparable season to 2021's Tommy Edman, who, though did not hit for much power. It was very similar to Ha-Seong Kim, where neither of the guys at the time hit for much power. Both had amazing Gold Glove caliber defense. And maybe the average would be there, but the power wasn't going to be there. And as of right now, Ha-Seong Kim has a higher WRC plus by 18 points and is at the same WAR as 2021 Tommy Edman. So in that sense, he has been really, really good. And I'm very happy that he's kind of, even I doubted it. Even I did. Like, I was a Ha-Seong Kim fan. I liked him, but I just thought, like, it might take this guy another year. It might take this guy maybe even 2 more years. And that's okay. He had time. He was still only going to be making $7 million. But this year, this is his year. This was his sort of a small breakout. And I think next year is going to be one of the bigger breakouts for Ha-Seong Kim. If he's given the opportunity, granted, the way he's playing right now, he deserves an opportunity somehow, some way. You got to fit him in somewhere. But confident the Padres will be able to do so for sure.
Yeah, and the final thing I'll say on Ha-Seong Kim, just because we are talking about him, becoming the everyday shortstop and Tatis moving to the outfield. One way that Ha-Seong Kim could kind of make, like, he could establish himself into a bigger case for that, like he should be the starting shortstop, is if we go back and we look at his splits in terms of righties lefties at the beginning of the season compared to the end of the year, that second half. If he is significantly better and he takes a jump within the season as well against righties, where they're looking at him, they're going, hey, he's going to make even another jump this next year, and he was already hitting righties well at the end of the year, then maybe we see that. But it's just kind of a little bit of a wait and see with all that. But yeah, I've been extremely impressed with Ha-Seong Kim, and he was already one of my favorite players. I mean, you hear the crowd when he comes up to bat. We'll hear it tonight. Everyone gets ecstatic when he is at the plate. So hopefully he can kind of continue this. I know he hasn't had like the best hot streak in terms of like the last week, but a couple weeks before that, he was really on one. He was
He's on
balling out.
fire.
So hopefully, he stays hot. He continues to perform. He's been putting up great numbers throughout the season, but I've been super pumped with him. But with that said, I think we're gonna get into kind of our final topic for tonight.